to North of 60. I'm Heidi Schweighofer. I haven't been here for a while and I'm very happy to be back. My guest today is Casey Weinstein. Casey is running for re-election for the state representative for the 34th District of the Ohio House. He's been a representative since 2019 and is 40 years old, lives here in Hudson, married with 3 kids. He also is a graduate of OSU and the United States Air Force Academy. All right, it's time to talk. Casey, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Heidi. This is awesome. I've been looking forward to it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right, I want to start the whole thing here with redistricting because I really have to say that although it's been explained to me both in the paper and in person, I don't understand what exactly has happened and why.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the only one. Us reps have been confused for the last year on it too, and these are the districts we're running for. So, we're operating and have been, unfortunately, in Ohio in gerrymandered districts, and I think most folks kind of understand at this point what gerrymandering is, but fundamentally it's a mismatch from how a state votes. And in Ohio, it's 54-46 Republican to Democrat. If you look at the last 10 years of voting and aggregate the votes, it's pretty close. But the representation in the House and Senate is dramatically skewed toward Republicans because the districts have been drawn purposely to make more favorable districts for them. So that led to a referendum in 2015, I believe, that Ohio voters overwhelmingly passed that mandated fair districts. And it created this redistricting commission of representatives of both parties, statewide offices, and the House and Senate minority leaders to come together to make districts that were representational of how Ohioans vote. So in the 99-seat legislature, House, for example, we would have approximately 54 Republican seats, 45, if I'm doing my math right, Democratic seats. Okay. So that set up this redistricting commission, which of course every 10 years we need to redistrict. So, unfortunately what we saw is the redistricting commission, because it's made up of statewide appointed officials, was majority Republican, and they passed maps that were deemed by the Ohio Supreme Court in a bipartisan ruling to be unconstitutional and not in compliance with the citizen-led initiative that was passed. So that cycle happened 5 times where the redistricting commission would submit a map, which was still gerrymandered. The Supreme Court, in a bipartisan ruling, would strike it down, and it would go back to the redistricting commission. And over time, you could see the strategy of sort of drawing this out, unfortunately, by the other side. And it worked. And eventually a federal appeals court intervened, made up of 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat, and said, stop the process, picked a map, the 3rd out of the 5th map, out of the 5 maps randomly. And that is the map that we are operating under, an unconstitutional map, but temporarily in place because of a federal injunction for this cycle. So that has led me, I am currently the 37th House District Representative, but I'm running for the 34th House District. And that district includes all of Hudson, all of Stowe, all of Cuyahoga Falls, which is new, and a little slice of Northwest Akron in Ward 8.
Really?
Yes.
Akron?
Yeah, go down to Akron. So they sliced my district in half, and they took Twinsburg, Macedonia, Reminderville, Northfield out and put it in sort of a red district, and left the southern part of the district and added on Cuyahoga Falls. So that said, this district ended up being, I'm thankful, it ended up being whole cities for the most part, other than the little bit of Akron.
So all of Hudson?
All of Hudson, all of Stowe, all of the Falls.
Okay.
And I have been representing Hudson and Stowe for the last 4 years.
Okay.
So that is certainly familiar turf.
Okay.
And then I've represented a little slice, gerrymandered slice of Cuyahoga Falls. And now it's all of the city of Cuyahoga Falls, which is a wonderful city. And I'm very, very excited to have an opportunity, if reelected, to represent them. But I can understand why voters are so confused. I have people reaching out in my current district today saying, hey, what's going on? Are we in your district? Are we not? it has been incredibly confusing for voters. So, you go into the voting booth and you're kind of like, who's going to be on my ballot? But I hope that over these last, 60 days or 50 days toward the election, that we're able to get out. Actually, whether you're voting Republican or Democrat, I hope you're clear on what, folks get clear on what the districts are.
Casey, I will be completely honest with you. That is the first time I have understood this.
Oh.
I truly, I know that there was a five attempts. I know that the federal court at some point came into play, but I have not understood why and how it affects me as a citizen of Hudson as much as it does.
Yeah.
So I thank you. I finally understanding. Now, what happens after this election?
Great question. We go right back into uncertainty because these maps are only in place for this cycle. It's going to depend on the Supreme Court, the Ohio Supreme Court race. I believe 3 justices are up for re-election.
Yes.
And depending on the way that goes, the rulings may change and they may lock in the third map for 10 years, or they may or for another 2 years, or they may replace it with a new map. So your guess is as good as mine going forward. But for this election, it is the 34th House District for Hudsonites.
Okay, all right.
And I will be on the ballot.
Good.
Yep.
Good. All right. Well, what I'd like to do is just talk about current topics and things that are happening in Ohio, and have you just talk about your views of them and how you see them. So let's start with the PACT Act, which I thought was wonderful. My son-in-law is a 20-year veteran of the Army. You are a graduate of the Air Force Academy and a veteran. Tell us about that.
So the PACT Act was a piece of federal legislation that expanded veterans benefits for those who had been impacted by burn pits, which were a very sad, devastating, unfortunate reality of the Gulf War and beyond era. And those veterans are now aging, they're having health challenges related to it, and it's something that the most sacred obligation we have is to those who've put their lives on the line for us. It's especially meaningful for me because my classmates, many have served overseas in the Iraq War and in Afghanistan and around the world. And I have friends who are in the veterans care system, and we need to take care of them. So I was really thankful for that legislation. That was on the federal side.
Okay.
One of the great joys of my time serving has been on the Armed Services and Veterans Affairs Committee.
Good.
In the last General Assembly, I was the ranking member, so I was the senior Democrat. This General Assembly, I serve on the committee again. We do a lot of bipartisan work on that committee, which I really appreciate.
Heavens.
Yeah. Veterans is one area where we have really strong bipartisan agreement, and I'm really thankful to be on a committee where we can do that. And one of the greatest moments of my life was the signing of my bill that had passed out of the House, and then a Senate bill passed out, and we signed a bill at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at the Air Force Museum. The governor was there and invited me to attend the signing, and I stood behind him as he signed a bill to expand licensing to military families, licensing reciprocity. One thing that really affects military families on the active duty side is with frequent moves, spouses have a hard time with their careers.
Sure.
A
nurse licensed in Ohio moves to Nevada.
Exactly, right. Teachers, nurses, oftentimes spouses will take jobs that are easily transferable to other states. Unfortunately, the licensing doesn't always transfer with them.
Oh, wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah, so they will spend months, or they used to spend months trying to get their licensing approved, and then by that time it cuts into their earnings. And so unemployment within military families is much higher than with non-military families. So it's something that I was able to work on in my first General Assembly. It was a bipartisan bill. It passed unanimously out of the House, and then the Senate version passed unanimously out of the Senate, and then we signed it into law. The governor signed it into law, And I was able to go back to where I was assigned at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and be a small part of something
Excellent.
good for military families.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Your wife is a vet, is she not?
She is. We met.
That's what I remember reading online.
We met at the Air Force Academy when she saved me from a falling TV in the cadet gymnasium. The TV fell. She was the only other cadet in the gym. I was yelling for help. She heard my pleas, and she came over and helped me get this giant TV on the
love
ground.
Started.
Locked in the power dynamic for our relationship right there, forever. And that was 19 years ago. 19 years ago.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful,
Yeah.
Casey. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, all right, let's go on to the local government fund.
Yeah.
Now, I know it affects cities just like Hudson.
Absolutely. So, I was on city council
Right.
here in Hudson
I
for 3
remember.
years, and we were in an era where there had been dramatic cuts to the estate tax and to local government funds from the state, really vital support for the state, into our general fund in Hudson. And serving there, I saw the impact. I mean, it was a significant percentage of our general fund spending, which is frontline spending. You know, we're talking police and fire and parks and infrastructure and water projects and really critical funding that we need, to the government that folks interact with most, local government.
Right, right.
So it caused real strains on local government funds, and I saw that firsthand on city council. So when I ran in 2018, I really put a focus on investing again in our local governments, in our communities, because that is such vital funding.
Amen.
Right, and again, the government that you are interacting with most when you're having challenges, where water goes in rain events. If you have a medical emergency, paramedics, or God forbid, a fire or something
Right.
that needs a police
Right.
response, we need well-funded first responders and local government.
Absolutely.
We need money for local infrastructure projects, for safety projects. We need money for just a lot of these things, for safe walkways around communities, to make sure our roads are paved, right? It's very vital local government funding. So one thing I'm really proud of is in a bipartisan way, when I got to the legislature, we restored a big chunk of government funds. And also thanks to federal funds that have come in through the infrastructure bill and the American Rescue Plan, there is actually now an historic amount of funding that is going to local governments of all sizes for those really vital projects, for police, for firefighters, for H2 Ohio, for clean water initiatives, for roads, for bridges, for engineering. And it's really been great.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
So that affects Hudson, that affects Stowe, that affects Cuyahoga Falls, all of us. It affects
Absolutely, absolutely. And hopefully, you've seen in your daily driving that we're paving roads, right? And city council's done it.
Widening 91.
Yep.
Finally, I know it's
Yes.
finally happening. And the sidewalks. I've noticed so many new sidewalks.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see that.
Yeah,
This is a real
absolutely.
walking town.
100%. And a credit to city council for choosing to invest in safe walkways and expanding our walkability in the city.
Right.
That's what we need. Those are the things, those special investments that make Hudson a great place to live, and we want to continue to make it a wonderful place to live. So.
Yep, good. All
Yeah.
right, that was interesting. I want to know now, let's talk about HB6. Because I think I feel some anger there as a taxpayer, and the Energy Jobs and Justice Act. So this is a whole lot of stuff.
Right.
All right.
Whew. So HB6. When I was, running for election in 2018, a bunch of dark money from a group called Hardworking Ohioans came into the race, and I was thinking to myself, wow, there's a lot of outside spending going on here. I later found out that it was tied to a gentleman who was, a man who was trying, don't know if I could call him a gentleman, who was trying to be speaker, who had taken tens of millions of dollars, over $61 million from First Energy, our local utility, and funneled it through dark money groups and misappropriated some of the money allegedly for his personal use. He's going on trial for this next year. And that money was used to elect their preferred legislators. In my case, they wanted the other guy, but I won. So I ended up serving on the Energy Committee that heard the bill. And this bill, HB 6, which was purportedly a bailout bill of nuclear plants, but also killed off our renewable energy standard. We're one of the only states in the nation, I think it's us and West Virginia, who have weakened or reduced a renewable energy standard. It eliminated our highly successful bipartisan energy efficiency standards. And most egregiously, I think, it added a coal bailout for two 1950s era coal plants, one of which is in southern Ohio, the other of which is in Indiana, in Madison, Indiana. And that was,
Why?
money from AEP, another utility that owned OVEC, which was that had a big ownership share in OVEC. So, it was, and then the head of an energy industry guy was appointed by the governor to be the Public Utilities Commission official, the head of PUCO, who was supposed to be really a consumer advocate, but who ended up advocating for this bill. It became law. Long story short, I voted against it, but it became law. And now that's the law of the land. Now, once these revelations happened, we historically first removed Larry Householder as Speaker of the House, and then we booted him out of the Ohio House. And this is the first time this has happened. Somebody has been kicked out of the Ohio House since, I believe it's 1856, when there were fisticuffs on the House floor over a dispute about mileage in 1856.
Casey, how did it happen though? How did it happen?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know
how
exactly
do you ask
how
the question. It is.
Was it just blind eyes? Was it people being paid off?
Yeah, I think absolute power corrupts. I think there's just a yearning for power, both in this case literally and figuratively, and lacks oversight and poor, not enough strong regulations in daylight in terms of how money moves around for political purposes. These dark money groups are able to essentially raise unlimited amounts and spend freely. And it's very hard to find out where the money's coming from. So, as a result, I don't take corporate PAC checks. I don't take any corporate money. My money comes from it. I have a rule about it coming from people or connected to people. And I think Ohioans deserve that accountability to understand where the money is coming from that is influencing these votes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So where are we with this whole energy?
Thank you.
Nuclear mess.
Well, I'm tired of
coal plants. Okay.
Well,
anyway, I won't make any of my own comments.
That's fair. I've got plenty of opinions for both of us. I went to the coal plant in Indiana. It's an hour over the border. I went there to show Ohioans what we're bailing out. It's an uncompetitive coal plant. It requires Ohio subsidies to be able to economically operate. And
in Indiana,
an hour over the border, we're not getting the power, we're not getting the jobs, but it's there, and tens of millions of dollars have now gone to it since the bill was passed into law. So it's very frustrating. But I got tired of playing defense on HB 6. So I put forward a comprehensive energy policy known as the Energy Jobs and Justice Act. I'm working with my amazing colleague, State Representative Juanita Brent from Cleveland, and it is a bill that I think provides the right forward-looking 21st century energy policy for Ohio. So it restores and strengthens our renewable standards. It restores and strengthens our energy efficiency standards. It creates energy justice programs to ensure that those that are most impacted by the pollution around energy generation have resources going into their community to help.
Good.
And it ends the subsidies on coal. It has oversight over how our public utilities commissioners are elected, for more citizen accountability to that. And that is the vehicle that I think we need.
And where are we with that?
We have testified before the Public Utilities Committee, and it's awaiting further testimony. I hope we have an opportunity for proponent testimony where citizens from across the state can come and testify to the committee, in support of this legislation that we deserve.
Would it eliminate the funds going to the coal plant in
It would.
Indiana?
It would. They would have to compete on their own for,
Right.
and ultimately that plant would shut down, and we would move to cleaner forms of generation.
Good.
Yeah.
Is it Larry Householder that's coming up for trial?
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that when I used to watch this on the news at least, I think the arrogance was just sort of, it was like no one touches me.
Yeah.
It was a real, I had a bad taste in my mouth about the whole thing.
I did too, and it was incredibly frustrating for me on behalf of Ohioans to see, corruption is something you hear about it, but to see it, and I hope all of it gets aired next year and folks see what he did with that money. But I will say, it took 66 votes to kick him out of the House, and we got 66 votes. Republicans and Democrats, but we only got 66 out of the 99, and I was glad to be in that seat to punch that button and say yes, he needs to go on behalf of Ohio. So that was a moment where I said, sometimes in the minority in the House, I'm wondering, oh man, I'm voting against stuff so much, right? I want to be able to vote for the right thing for Ohioans, and that was one of those defining moments where
excellent,
we had some accountability.
Good.
It's a lot.
I don't think I could be. I can tell you, I couldn't be doing what you do, Casey. I just to have to stay abreast of everything and to constantly have to say to yourself, I'm doing this for the people that I represent. This is why I'm doing it. This is how I'm going to do it, whether it's popular or not. It is what you're doing.
It is a challenge, but and there are ups and downs and stresses and challenges on my family and some negative experiences, which folks, I share those too. But I will say it is overwhelmingly positive when I'm around town or out in the district and folks come up and we can have a conversation, or they'll say, hey, this bill helped me, or hey, I want you to vote, this way, and it may be that like I did something where they disagreed with, and I'm okay. Let's talk about it. But overwhelmingly, it is folks being positive and thankful, and I'm so thankful for them to have the opportunity and the honor to serve. So
good. That's wonderful to hear. I want to talk about access to health care and prescription drug pricing. Whole lots of seniors are diabetic. Type 2 diabetes is very popular, along with heart disease with seniors. And I know the cost of insulin has supposedly skyrocketed. Thank God I don't need it. But let's talk about that. What's going to happen with prescription drug pricing and insulin pricing and how it affects seniors particularly?
Yeah, this is one of the top concerns that folks reach out to me about. So on the federal side, in the Inflation Reduction Act, which thankfully was a bipartisan, well, no, it wasn't. Unfortunately, it wasn't a bipartisan bill, but it passed.
Yes.
And it had an historic first on prescription drugs, allowing the government to negotiate on some of the most widely used drugs over time to get better purchasing power that ultimately flows down to seniors and makes medicine, makes pharmaceuticals, drugs, whatever it is, more affordable to them. So that was a big step in the right direction. There has been some action on insulin on the federal side. I'm not exactly sure where that stands, but on the state side, there is a bill. I believe in the last General Assembly, we had a House bill to cap costs at $35 a month.
No kidding.
There was. It did not. I think I need to be. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe we had a bill last General Assembly, and I can say now there is a Senate bill to cap insulin costs that I'm certainly supportive of.
Oh, excellent.
And I'm very hopeful. Things can happen. It's called lame duck after an election and before the next General Assembly starts.
Okay.
And it's important to know that a bill introduced in a particular General Assembly only is valid for the life of that General Assembly. So we're in the 134th, which will end in December. So that bill, needs to work its way through the system and hopefully pass this General Assembly, or we'll have to work it again, and hopefully I have an opportunity to in the 135th. Now, things can move pretty quickly in lame duck, and I'll be down there around the holidays. hopefully not like too deep into the holidays, but I'll be down there. And we have some late nights where there's a lot of bills moving very quickly, and it is an absolute priority for me to push my colleagues in the Senate to get that bill passed over to us so we can vote yes on it and control those costs.
Good.
Yeah.
Lots of seniors, even those here in Hudson, are living on a limited income.
Right.
And worry so much. I have one gal in my head right now who decides, now I can't afford this, I need my medicine, so I can't get new tires for my car. And that's wrong. That is a wrong way for us to treat our senior citizens. It's just wrong.
Couldn't agree more. Wherever we can make living more affordable, homestead exemptions are another thing, capping increases in property tax reevaluations. There's 2 bills on that to increase homestead exemptions and to limit the increases on property taxes that are levied. Right.
MG.
I am all about controlling costs for our seniors who are often living on fixed incomes, right?
Yep.
So something's got to give. If expenses are increasing, something's got to give, and that's unacceptable to me.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Yeah.
It is so true. That is very, very true.
Yep.
All right, let's go on to this one. It doesn't directly affect senior women, of course, but it certainly affects those of us who have daughters. And it's really not just reproductive rights and what has happened with that, but the whole health care for women genre.
Right.
I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're thinking about that, Casey.
Yeah, I mean, in the course of my life, I have seen rights expand over time. And it was a shock to my system to see rights being taken away from people. And I think it's fair to say for many millions of women who this more closely impacts, I think it was a shock to see that.
Oh.
Where I come down on this issue fundamentally is that we deserve a right to privacy in our country. Women deserve a right to privacy. Government has a healthy distrust of government in terms of making decisions that involve our bodies. And in this case, I firmly disagree with the notion that government should be between a woman, maybe her partner, but more importantly, a woman and her doctor.
Amen.
There are so many women who have many different complications or issues in pregnancy. Amanda and I did, a million things can happen or go wrong, and oftentimes they do. And oftentimes abortion is the healthcare remedy for that. And we're talking about women's lives in this case. So I have had so many of my friends who before, and just constituents who have reached out, they want to go to coffee. I get coffee at Heartwood. You'll always see me at Heartwood in the mornings, at least once a week with a constituent, hearing their stories and hearing how this has impacted them for a wide range of issues. And some have given testimonials that I've shared about why the right to make this decision over their bodies is so critically important. And I just don't view this as a role for big government to be in that loop.
No. I'm old enough to have been alive in my teen years when abortion was illegal, and knew of girls who were harmed forever by what happened to them with illegal abortion. And I can barely, I don't want to even start the conversation much more than we have, because it is so distressing to me to see. My sister, who's older than me, said, are we going back in time for women? Is it next going to be no vote, or we have to have a man's approval? It's just it was such a shock to so many of us.
It was
in my age range.
To hear about children who've been impacted,
yes.
And no exceptions. The 10-year-old. This is not what the vast majority of Ohioans want,
No,
and polls show that, and Americans know that. and we have got to get this right. And I am a fighter for rights, for abortion rights for women, and privacy, ultimately, and that's what it comes down to for me.
Privacy. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yep.
Well, we have all of 20 seconds.
We did pretty well.
Gonna happen.
We did pretty well.
Yeah, we did. We covered the things I wanted to cover.
Good.
Anything that you want to say, before we officially stop this show today?
Yeah. No, I mean, I just want to be clear. It has been an absolute honor to serve, and whether I get to or not further is to me at this point beside the point. I just want my constituents to know anytime there is an issue, you can reach out to us at rep37@ohiohouse.gov. That's rep37@ohiohouse.gov.
We'll have that on the end of the show,
that'd be great.
too.
That'd be great. Or if you happen to be on a social media page like Facebook, you can message me. I answer those directly. I answer those emails.
Good for you.
I answer those messages. If there is ever an issue or a question or a need for resources or to be connected to the right office or through the governor's office, whatever it is, please let us know, and I'm happy to help. If you want me to show up and knock me over the head for a bad vote, or just talk to me about the issues that matter to you, I'm all ears, and I will do that. And I'd love to stop by and have a legislative update and a constituent coffee. That's one of the great things is getting to interact with people. So
excellent. Casey, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching North of 60. You will be able to find ways to reach and to talk to Casey at the end of the show. So stay tuned to the credits at the end. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.